Hey everyone, this is Captain V. Have I ever told you about the time I was swept out to sea in a rip current? No? Punch on. Okay. This was back in university days. It's probably about maybe 15 years ago or so, maybe a little bit less, 13 years ago. And I had gone out to Tofino on the west coast of Vancouver Island in BC, Canada. And I was there to film some surfers, some kind of like semi-pro surfers. Um, for I forget what for, even just some for some university video or for some promotional video or something like that. I wasn't a very good videographer, but I was filming it for some video. And what I was going to do was I had some kind of like scuba gear, basically. I had scuba gear and I was going to be in that gear in like a dry suit. So I was warm, but in that gear in the water. And then I would be filming them as they came by me on the wave, like that. So there were a number of them. And we went out, and it was a beach similar to this. The only difference is the beach is quite sandy and more gradual. But yeah, off the coast of Tofino. So there we were. We started going, and things started great. They were doing some really cool tricks. The surfers, there was lots of the surf was pretty good. Yeah, and I was getting lots of good videos. And then we'd be out there for a little while. And when you're out in the water, when you're surfing, you probably, if you have surfed, you know that you move quite a bit. And depending on the shape of the beach, then the surf does different things and it comes from different areas and it reacts differently to the beach. So on the beach that we were at, it had a rip current danger that we had to be aware of, but seemed to be fine for the time. And I was away from it, so I was keeping an eye on that, and I didn't seem to be going towards it. Now, if you're not aware that a rip current is an area, usually of a beach, where the water pulls you out to sea. So it rips you away from the shore, and it does so very quickly, without really much notice. Um, so this on this beach, we were off in a different area. Okay, so we are kind of like the rip current was more over in this area over here, when we were a bit more over in this area. Now, unfortunately, over time of filming, we gradually drifted that way. And it's such a big landscape, as you can see, that it's kind of hard to keep track of where exactly you entered the beach and where exactly you are in the water, because all the water looks the same. So we gradually drifted over that way. And I started to notice that I was a little bit farther out than some of the surfers. And I was like, oh, I need to get back in a little bit, get back in closer to shore, because that's where the better surf was. Out where I was, the waves were not quite developing high enough yet, because they weren't hitting the beach under the water. So I was like, oh, I need to get back in a bit. So from back out there more in this way so that I could be at the good section of the waves where they really curve nicely and I can see them really surfing this way as well. So I started to do that. And so I had fins on, right? I had full scuba gear on. And so I was buoyant. I didn't have to worry about keeping myself up. And I was warm because I was in a dry suit. So I started to swim back towards the shore. Okay, so I was kind of like, and I started to swim back into the shore, hoping to go like this. But I swam. And then the only way to tell if you're close to the shore is by looking at the shore, right? To see how far away you are. And then, or looking to the side, because on this beach, it was in between two peninsulas. So you could look at land to the side, kind of like this land. And so I'd look over towards that land and I was kind of like in line with this thing. And then I swam in towards the shore. And then I looked over and I was kind of more like in line with this part. And I was like, whoa, what? Are my eyes lying? No, I'm further out. I looked at the beach and the beach was getting smaller and smaller. And no matter how hard I swam in towards shore, I was going out towards the ocean. and not in towards shore. So I was like, oh no. I look around, I saw the telltale signs, the signs of like kind of like ripples in the water to show that it was a rip current that I was in. I was in the rip current, and could see these signs that that's where it was. And I could feel myself being pulled out towards the ocean. And I'm getting farther and farther away from the land. And what a scary feeling that is, I'll tell you, when this massive force of the ocean is pulling you out into the sea. Now, if you want to hear about the scary forces of the ocean in terms of one where I drowned, then you can click on a link up top here to another story about how powerful the ocean can be. But back to this story. In this story, I'm getting pulled out towards the ocean. And at this point, a woman who I didn't know at all on the beach, she saw me and she called the Coast Guard, the Canadian Coast Guard. And they're based in Ucluelet, which is a little bit down the coast from there. And she told them, this surfer, she called me a surfer, this surfer is getting pulled out to the ocean. Yeah, he's about 1 kilometer out to sea. And it's a long way, right? Yeah. And so they told her, well, it happens all the time. Give him an hour or two and give us a call if he doesn't make it back in by then. She's like, okay. So they don't want to send the boat out. They don't want to send out the rescue boat for every surfer that gets pulled out to the ocean here. They want to see if you can make your own way back in first. And only if you're really, really in a bad place, like you are kilometers into the ocean, do they want to send the boat for you. So that's what they say. So the other surfers now finally notice this. And I'm like, yikes. Like I'm trying to swim. I'm like starting to get a little panicked here. Like I'm trying to swim back as much as I can. I'm using the fins, but I'm getting pulled out. I'm still getting pulled out to the ocean there. And there are some kind of like little rocky bits out there. And then it's like the open ocean until you get to Japan, like the Pacific Ocean. So I'm not in a good place here. I'm worried. So at this point, the surfers decide, they notice, and it might have been that woman who alerted them to this because they're like, she gets them out of like surfing and like, hey. So they notice, and 2 of them come out to save me. Now, why is better for them to come out and why they're able to get to me? Well, 1, they can ride the rip current. 2, the big thing is that me being in the water, my body being under the water, put me in the path of the rip current and just pulled me right out. There's nothing I could do as long as my body was in the water. But being on top of the water on a surfboard, you are much less in the water and you can kind of still go across the top of it, even though it's pulling you out. You're able to battle it better than being right in the water like I was, kind of swimming at the surface. So they come out, 2 of them on surfboards, and they come all the way out to me. And I'm now at about a kilometer and a half. Okay, so about a mile if you're watching this from the US, out to sea. So I'm way out there somewhere. And you could barely even see me. People are now looking, using their binoculars, I hear, from the beach over here. And they come way out to me. And they're like, hey, they're like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm good. I'm really tired because I've been swimming hard to try to get my way back in this whole time. But if you know on a rip current, the best way to get back in is not swimming directly straight back in towards the rip current. You'll never do it. It's like running the opposite way on a treadmill or trying to go running up an escalator that's going down, okay? Going really fast. So you can't, you're just like running on a hamster wheel. So what you're supposed to do is actually swim sideways to get out of the path of the rip current and then work your way. Once you're out of the path of the current, then to work your way kind of diagonally back in towards shore. So that's what we do. But what we do is we create a train. We take turns being the person out front will be on the board. So we'll go board, swimmer, board. So The person on the board at the front will paddle with their arms. The person in the middle will hold on to the surfboard. The person on the back will hold on to the middle person's feet, and they will kick with their feet. So there's two people. There's one person paddling with their arms at the front, and there's one person at the back kicking with their feet. And the person in the middle is basically just a link, a connector in the middle. And that's what we do. We create this train so that we got two force like that, and we're mostly above the water on two boards. Just one person's in the water. And we take turns in the different positions because it's so exhausting. Paddle, 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 because we're paddling as hard as we can. We are so far out to ocean at this point. And it's scary because I'll tell you at that part, when you start to lose sight of the beach, like when you can no longer just make out the size of people, you can't see people anymore. You just see like waves, and occasionally you see the beach, but you can't even see people because they're so small. That's scary because that's where you came from, right? And you're now that far away. So we go sideways. We work our way out of the rip current, and we've been drifting out even further at this point. And so at about a mile and a bit out, we get out of the current, and we start working our way all the way back into shore, going towards a different direction. Kind of from, so at this point, we're way up, we're way past this point. And then gradually, and back in, kind of like this. And we take, it probably took an hour, like a long, long time. But somewhere within that hour, like the woman who had called the Coast Guard saw us gradually making our way back in. So they did not send a boat. And we made it all the way back in until finally, once we got into the surf area, back into the surf area, so within the first few hundred meters, we could literally surf these waves in a giant 3-person train, 2 surfboards, surfing our way back in. And that was awesome because it helped. And we could gradually kind of coast in like that. When we got to the beach, all 3 of us were really, really tired, exhausted. And I felt a little embarrassed that I had got myself into this situation, and I had, caused 2 other people to have to come save me, and possibly even like the Coast Guard. I'm lucky that those 2 surfers did come out like that and get me out of that situation, because it was not a very comfortable place to be. So beware of rip currents. And if you see signs for them, know where they are on the beach and know the signs for what they are. And they are not a power to be messed with. They are a very powerful thing that can put you in quite a bit of danger. So lucky to still be here. Hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you next time.